Okay, so I was watching the fights last weekend. I believe it was last weekend, and I saw how the UFC had recently inducted Mark Kerr, the Smashing Machine, into the Hall of Fame, and it just got me thinking of Demetrious Johnson and why the fuck he hasn't been inducted yet. I know there was an interview from last year where someone was asking Dana about it, and they're like, "Well, are you going to induct him into the Hall of Fame?" And Dana was like, "Yeah, once he retires." That was the excuse at the time for not inducting him yet. Is, oh, well, he's still active, so we can't induct him until he's fully retired. Okay, here's the problem. DJ retired in September of 2024. It's been like 8 months since then. What the hell are we doing here? Seriously. So I'm gonna go through. I'm up on the Hall of Fame page now. We're gonna talk. We're gonna take a look at some of the guys who are in, and then we're gonna go to the modern Hall of Fame, the modern wing Hall of Fame. That's people who've obviously debuted um, after 2000, right? This is before 2000. We're gonna see how their resumes stack up. Obviously, that'll be kind of the broad argument, and then we'll go and we'll look at DJ's body of work in the UFC because I know there's a lot of guys that are really fucking boring and things like that. Again, at the end of the day, I think your body of work speaks for itself. Boring or not, you know, championship wins are championship wins, in my opinion. But we'll take that a level deeper with DJ because I do think he was a very exciting champion. And I think he got the shaft for most of his career, and he's getting the shaft now. It seems like they're snubbing him from the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't know what the deal is here. Like, I know some of these guys, it takes like a year or so to get inducted or be in the nomination for being inducted, right? There's a couple guys that come to mind now that are going to be put in the Hall of Fame, and the UFC's announced that. But if you go to Google, there's not even any word of them announcing DJ as a Hall of Fame inductee, which is fucking crazy to me. Like, what are we doing here? Like, so let's take a look at the Pioneer wing, right? These are the older guys, right? Like, let's just start here. Like, Vanderlei Silva, never a champion. Obviously, I can't argue Anderson. Jens was a champion. Rich was a champion. Randleman was a champion. Most of these guys are legends, right? Again, I would argue most of these guys don't have the resume that DJ does, right? Now, look, I'm not here to argue that DJ has the best resume of all time. Like, I know when it comes to the tip top of the sport on Goat Mountain, it's hard to put him above those guys because he just doesn't have the big name value in most of his UFC victories. But still, I mean, look, you're gonna put Vanderlei Silva in. Look, I get a lot of these guys had a great career in Pride. Like, he had a great career in Pride, right? Vanderlei was great in Pride. That's not the UFC though. We're talking UFC Hall of Fame. And another thing that I want to mention here is look at that, Tito Ortiz. If you've been watching the sport like I have, and for as long as I have, like, that Tito Ortiz was Dana's mortal enemy throughout his career. Those guys beef so much. They even had a boxing match set up in 2006 to beat the shit out of each other. That's how much Dana did not like this man. Still did the right thing, put Tito Ortiz in the Hall of Fame, as he should have, right? Obviously, most of these guys are legends. Randy, I can't argue a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys, they were champions, right? Vanderlei Silva, it's like, that's questionable to me because his prime was in Pride, not even in the fucking UFC, right? So let's take a look at the modern wing, right? We got Shogun, Frankie, Joanna. I mean, obviously hard to argue. We got Donald Cerrone. We got, Rashad Evans, Uriah Faber. Again, multiple people who weren't ever champions of the UFC. He fought for the belt, like, I believe it was about 3 times. Lost every single time. Yeah, Donald Cerrone, I mean, the tip of his career, the highest point of his career was getting body kick TKO'd by Rafael Dos Santos for the lightweight belt, right? And it's just like, and he got in fairly quickly, right? Donald Cerrone got in fairly quickly, and obviously we're gonna get into that stuff and talk about that a little bit more. So first, I want to start this by looking at the accolades of DJ, right? Obviously, look at the accolades. 11 title defenses, right? obviously, you know, the name value isn't really there, but 11 title defenses. 11 title defenses. Donald Cerrone gets in. No problems. Uriah Faber gets in. No problems. Wanderlei Silva gets in. No problems, right? And and then I had to highlight the armbar he had over Ray Borg. If you haven't watched that fight, you need to go back and watch that. He literally suplexes Ray Borg in midair, changes the grip, armbars him midair, and finishes the fight there. It's one of the craziest. You have to watch it. It's one of the craziest MMA transitions I've ever seen, right? Now let's talk excitement, right? Out of those 11 title defenses, it's not like DJ was a boring champ either, which makes no sense why they don't put him in. Like, where's the beef coming from, right? Like, the dude was exciting. He had 7 out of his 11 title defenses end in finishes. Exciting guy. And even the ones that went to decision, most of those were all exciting. I think the fight with Tim Elliott, when they did that season of The Ultimate Fighter where the winner got a title against DJ, I think that was kind of a bit of a slower, boring, more methodical match. But most of his fights were extremely exciting. I remember watching his 6-year reign as champion, and it's like most of those fights he was finishing. So like, you can't tell me he wasn't an exciting champion. You can't tell me he wasn't marketable. Like, the fucking speed of that guy, the technique, the striking, the way he would strike and change levels, the speed and precision that he had in there. Like, you cannot tell me he's exciting. So, okay, well, we got to rule that out. Well, he wasn't exciting enough. Again, that's not a reason to not put someone in the Hall of Fame, right? And then it's like, you look at his title fights, and it's like 6 out of the 11 title fights, defenses he had, weren't even on pay-per-view. They were on Fox Fight Nights. He would headline a fight night. I can't remember if he even co-main evented a fight night a couple times. He may have. But it's like, here's a champion who was exciting, very marketable in my opinion. Obviously, I know the lower weights, it's kind of harder to market them, but like, this guy was incredible. Like, this guy was truly special in his skill set. And, you know, he played company, man. He had 6 of his 11 title defenses with no pay-per-view points. That's insane. Imagine asking a guy like Pantoja or one of these other champs these days to just take a fight night with no pay-per-view points when they're a world champion. You know how fucking hard it is to become a world champion in the UFC? Seriously. And this guy is just like, okay, yeah, I'll do this fight night. I'll headline this fight night. He did that throughout his career. And, you know, just because he didn't want to take that, he finally had enough when it came to TJ Dillashaw and setting up that super fight, because they weren't going to give him the money they want. They weren't going to give him any stipulations. They're like, no, you need to just do this fight for the usual pay. And he's like, the hell I will. I'm not doing that shit. And, you know, I know there was back and forth because of that. And I know he felt like they didn't market him enough. And I honestly agree with him. Like, dude, seven finishes out of his 11 title defenses. Like, come on. Like, taking 6 fights that were for the title on a fight night with no pay-per-view points. I can't remember what he had said his career earnings in the UFC were. It was only like a few million, which is insane, right? So it's like, here's a champion with, you know, honestly, a better championship resume than most people in the Hall of Fame, outside of like the real like tip-top goats of the sport, you know, your GSPs. Obviously John Jones isn't there yet, but you know, he'll get there. DC, you know, things like that. Guys like that. So yeah, it's like exciting champion, willing to play a company man and not take pay-per-view points and headline a fight night for you guys. He stepped up 6 times to headline a fight night as a defending world champion who was, you know, up in the top 5 pound for pound. That's unheard of. Nobody would do that these days. Nobody would do that. So like, what's the deal here? Exciting champion, company man throughout his career. You know, finally gets sick of it and, you know, doesn't want to do the Dillashaw fight because they're not willing to actually invest into him for once. Despite all the years he had, you know, been that company guy for them and gave them exciting finishes. You know, he wasn't a one-punch knockout guy, but submissions. He did have a couple knockouts and TKOs, but, you know, very exciting guy. So it just makes no sense, right? Now let's look at the guys who retired. These guys are in the modern Hall of Fame wing, except for Dustin Poirier. and we'll get to him, right? So Robbie Lawler retires. I swear to God, it was like a few months later, they announced that he was being inducted. And I'm not here to argue that these guys don't deserve to be in. Sonnen's a little bit questionable in my opinion, but hey, it is what it is. Donald Cerrone retires shortly after, gets inducted. Chael Sonnen, I don't know if it was last year or sometime this year, he got announced to be inducted, right? Uriah Faber retires, gets inducted soon thereafter. Sonnen, Faber, Cerrone, none of those guys are champions. You know, looking at the Poirier retirement fight that's coming up next month against Max Holloway, what do you think they're going to do when he retires? I guarantee you within a few months they're going to induct Dustin Poirier into the Hall of Fame. And again, rightfully so. Yeah, he may not have been a champion, but he's got a hell of a resume inside the UFC. A lot of good legendary victories, right? So I'm just like sitting here scratching my head, you know, thinking like, why the hell hasn't DJ been inducted? Right? Like you got all these guys that can't stack up to him resume wise. You know, the guy, DJ, was a company man. 6 of his fights weren't even on pay-per-view. Exciting champion. It's just, it's almost like getting to that John Jones conspiracy level where it's like, what the hell is going on between the UFC behind the scenes where they're saying, well, let's not induct him yet. Let's not do this yet. And I don't know if he ever will be inducted. You know, it's crazy to me. It makes absolutely zero sense. You know, it's like, what did he do? Besides, like, not want to take your bullshit contract to fight TJ Dillashaw in a super fight after he defended the title double-digit times. Like, what are we doing here? You know? So, I just wanted to get on here and rant about this because I'm honestly I'm stumped by it. You know, it's like I've never seen such a personal vendetta. They inducted Tito Ortiz, Dana's mortal enemy, for God's sakes, who doesn't have half the resume DJ does. But they did the right thing and put him in. So, I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, because, like, I don't know if they're ever going to induct him, you know? So drop a comment below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you've heard any news on them potentially inducting him, because I haven't seen anything. You go to Google, it says, well, Dana said they would induct him once he retires. It's like, dude, that was 8 months ago. Like, cut the shit and just induct this guy. Like, quit having a personal vendetta against the guy. Like, God, you'd think he slept with Dana's wife or something at this point. You know, the level of disrespect throughout his career and the continued disrespect for, like, one of the greatest to ever do it, honestly. You know, it just, you know, it's crazy. So I had to get on here and rant about this. Content's pretty thin this week. You know, besides, like, the fight predictions I did for Hill and Roundtree, there's not a lot going on. So this was just one I wanted to get on here and rant about because it makes no fucking sense. So let me know what you guys think below. Drop a like, subscribe, and yeah, we will see you when we see you. Peace.